Indonesia has just recently signed two major economic partnership agreements with the European Union and Canada as part of the government's strategic programs in expanding the country's international trade and in attracting foreign investment into the country.
Following the political agreement reached on July 13th by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and President Prabowo Subianto, Indonesia and the European Union officially signed the substantive conclusion of the Indonesia-European Union Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or IUCEPA, negotiations in Bali on September 22, 2025. The agreement on the conclusion of the negotiations was signed by Coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs Airlangga Hartarto and European Commission Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security Maros Stojkovic. Speaking to the press after the signing ceremony, Minister Airlangga hoped exports from Indonesia to the European Union would increase 2.5-fold in the 5 years after the implementation of the IUCEPA agreement. The signing of the final agreement is scheduled to be held in late 2025 or early next year before the partnership agreements are submitted for ratification process. The European Union is Indonesia's fifth largest trading partner, with total trade reaching $30.1 billion in 2024. The trade balance between the two countries also recorded a surplus in favor of Indonesia, increasing from $2.5 billion in 2023 to $4.5 billion in 2024. Through this collaboration, 90% of products will enjoy 0% tariffs in the EU market, including leading commodities such as palm oil, textiles, footwear, fishery products, and renewable energy raw materials. The agreement also opens access for EU investors to invest in Indonesia, potentially creating new jobs. Initiating in 2016, this agreement was only reached 9 years later after at least 17 rounds of meetings. Meanwhile, an economic partnership agreement with Canada was signed by Trade Minister Budi Santoso and Canadian Minister of International Trade Maninder Sidhu in Ottawa on September 14, 2025, during President Prabowo's state visit to the North American country. Both countries are expected to ratify the agreement no later than mid-2026 before officially coming into effect. Through the Indonesia-Canada CEPA, more than 90%, or approximately 6,573 Indonesian tariff lines, will receive preferential treatment in the Canadian market. Indonesia's main exports to Canada include natural rubber, footwear, cocoa, vegetable oils and fats, and textiles. Key imports from Canada are wheat, fertilizers, soybeans, chemical pulp, and gold. The bilateral trade between Indonesia and Canada reached $2.72 billion during January to July period, up nearly 30% from $2.09 billion in the same period last year. Despite the growth, Indonesia still ran a trade deficit of $1.01 billion. Meanwhile, Trade Minister Budi Santoso explained that the completion of the EU CEPA and the signing of the ICA CEPA marked a turning point in Indonesia's journey to strengthen its global trade position, particularly given the current geopolitical and trade climate. According to him, Indonesia currently has approximately 20 implemented trade agreements, 10 more are in the ratification stage, and 16 are currently under negotiation. However, Indonesian industry faces numerous challenges to capitalize on these trade agreements, especially regarding environmental and sustainability issues. The European Union has strict regulations regarding deforestation, carbon emissions, labor rights, and compliance with technical standards, certification, and traceability.
Indonesia recently signed economic partnership agreements with the European Union and Canada as part of the government's strategic programs to boost exports amid rising global uncertainties. Our guest today, Professor Ariawan Gunadi, international trade expert at Tarumanegara University. He will talk about the impact of these economic partnership deals on Indonesia's exports. Professor Ariawan Gunadi, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, Ibu Valerina.
Okay, so Indonesia just recently signed economic partnership agreements with the European Union and Canada. How important are such economic partnership deals in expanding Indonesia's international trade?
First of all, if we see that signing the Indonesian EU agreement, trade agreement, especially in Bali in September 2025, I believe that this new free trade agreement will transformative for Indonesian trade. So I think this is good for Indonesia because Indonesia is not only signing with EU but with Canada. For example, the EU SEPA is set to eliminate tariff to over 90% of the goods, which Indonesia project will double its 30 million or maybe 1 billion bilateral trade with the EU within 5 years. So this is a good opportunity for Indonesia. And in practical, the Indonesian exporters like farmers, manufacturers, we have oil, we have also coffee, and also we have commodities. I think this is good to expand it, to support the Indonesian market to EU and Canada. And if we see that the SIPA and ICA SIPA also cover services, investment, and regulatory cooperations, we call it as a WTO plus, and creating more secure and predictive trade rules. So we believe that even we know that we have a free flow trade of service between Indonesia, EU, and Indonesia, Canada, but we believe that the sustainability, the issue of Indonesian export will be better than before.
Okay, now let's talk about the economic cooperation with the European Union first. As you said, 90% of Indonesia's product will enjoy a preferential tariff, up to 0% even. So which Indonesian products can benefit the most from this partnership?
Yes, based on the list that I got, and also Indonesia key agricultural products. Of course, the first is that palm oil, coffee, and also other commodities, because I think this is good to support Indonesian export to EU. And also, if we see textiles, apparel, and footwear like clothing, garment, and shoe marker also stand to gain significantly. I think we can boost the EU market. And then we have furniture, handicraft, also household goods, also important for Indonesian market to EU or to Canada. And then the other else is that fisheries, grocery goods. This is also important, and we believe that this will be more competitive and benefit for Indonesia, especially if we get zero tax. And also don't forget that EU market and Canada market also enter to Indonesia. That we have to support our SMEs or small medium enterprise to compete with them, for sure.
Of course, despite this partnership deal, the EU strict regulations, for example, on deforestation, carbon emissions, labor rights, and compliance with equality standards could pose barriers to entering the EU market. So how should the government help industries face such restrictions?
Okay, first of all, we talk on the deforestation issue. Yes, we have another issue with EU deforestation law. And this deforestation law last time proved that commodities like palm oil, like coffee, cocoa, is not linked any deforestation issues since 2020. So I think Indonesian government has been successfully dialogue with the Brussels to prepare our producer for this requirement. So we believe that our product, oil, cocoa that's sent to EU will free of this. Free of the issue of deforestation, because the issue of the EU deforestation law that we have to fulfill the requirement that all the regulation has been submitted to them before. And then the SIPA negotiation recognized this burden and also note the agreement in my notes that we need to capitalize on this by offering training, subsidies, or low-cost loans to upgrade farm management. Secondly, on the issue of the labor, yes, we have to fulfill the ILO, Indonesia Labor Organization's regulations, that I would advise the government to ensure strict regulation on this, because the violation or the issue of the ILO, it's quite important to support and to enter the market of the EU and SEPA and Canada, I mean. So, and on technical standard, the SEPA includes provisions to reduce non-tariff barrier. I think Indonesia will fulfill this. EU product like certification, eliminating the need for our exporters also important. And we believe that we can fulfill all the regulations required by EU and Canada.
In such a short time, do you think we can achieve all those requirements?
Yes, I think the government already negotiated with this, especially for the EU deforestation law, the implementation. So I think now the government urged the ministry to support the EU and the trade agreements between EU and Indonesia and the Canada with Indonesia. So we believe that both of these agreement will be fulfilled as soon by the government. And don't forget also we will enter the African market like Tunisia and Mozambique, if I'm not mistaken. So the government would like to expand not only with China, with the East, and also with the West, United States, but we can expand it more with several potential countries that we can cooperate.
Okay, because it will take effect in 2026, right?
Yes, it can affect.
Yeah. Okay, so of course we know that this deal not only increase Indonesia's export, but can also open up for more investment from European unions and Canada. So what industries could be affected by the entry of European investors to Indonesia?
Okay. Affected, yes, of course, textiles and apparel. It can be affected because, as you know, that government producer getting bigger, and then the agreement also will explicitly say to cover textiles, footwear among Indonesian key exports. This is, and second one is that processing food and agro industry. This is quite important, like seafood, like agribusiness benefit from duty-free access, also important. Furniture, handicrafts, and also manufactured goods. This is quite important, and it will be affect with this kind of agreement. With Canada, we don't have a big potential export because it's not quite big, but we try to collaborate with them. We believe that with several primary commodities like rubber, cocoa, and oils, butter, margarine, several products, and especially mineral, we can support them and we can collaborate, and we can fulfill our obligation in trade agreements between Indonesia and Canada.
Okay, just like you said that our opportunities with Canada is not as big as with the European Union. So what thing or what products that can be, potentially increased through this kind of agreement?
Yes, of course, as I said, that textiles, apparel also important, processing food, agro industry is also important. Indonesia process natural fiber, processing food, and also bird nests also important for them to support the collaborations of the trade agreement between Indonesia and Canada. Like manufactured goods, as I mentioned, also important. Wood furniture, handicrafts, electronic and households that we can maximize, we can boost, so we can enter Canada market, because that's the homework, biggest homework for Indonesians government, to urge the Indonesian exporter to support these trade agreements by elaborating, by coordinating with the SMEs, so that they can enter the Canadian market. So this is the big job, quite big job for us. Yes.
Yeah, and hopefully it will be, be implemented soon, so that it's really going to help improve Indonesia's export to European Union and Canada.
Yes.
Professor Ariawan Gunadi, thank you very much for your insights today.
Thank you very much, Ibu Valerie.
All right, moving on to...